Good morning. How's everybody today?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. My name is Jeff Hoagland. I'm the Education Director at the Stony Brook Millstone Watershed Association. And I know you guys are working on a project, yes?
Yes.
Working on, finished, about to work on? Where do you guys sit?
About to work on.
About to work on. Good. Then if anybody in that category, this is perfect that I'm here. So what I'd like to do, I'm very informal, and I'm sorry, actually, I should make apologies. I'm very old school. These are my PowerPoint slides. And I bring these because we've had these at a number of venues, and I don't have the PowerPoint. So little bit of, I guess we have how long is this class, an hour?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll try not to fill that whole hour, but let me just start at the beginning. My job is I direct an education program that reaches about 10,000 people a year for the Watershed Association. It's one small facet of what the Watershed Association does. If you go to the website, we like to say we make a case for clean water and healthy habitats, and CASE stands for 4 different programs that we use. So our staff of about 20 people fall into sort of one of these categories. We have a conservation team, an advocacy team, a science team, and an education team. So our conservation team has been instrumental in helping to protect some land and I guess steward the reserve that we have. We have 930 acres. It functions like a park, but it's privately owned. It's owned by the Watershed Association. The conservation program has also been instrumental in doing some restoration work in the past, reforestation projects. There was a project, if I wandered around enough, I could find it, but outside this school, there's a past a stormwater retention area, there was a tree planting that got hit by, I think, a really serious drought the year that we planted it. Advocacy program, there are folks who dress much more formally than I do, go into meetings, planning board meetings, different forums to, you guys know the book, The Lorax? Right? Okay, I like to say, I don't think Jen would like to hear me say it, but I tell everybody, she speaks for the trees. In other words, she goes in to different forums where she testifies on behalf of the environment. This project that you're going to do in your community really isn't going to work because, boom, we don't have a way to get rid of the wastewater, or there's not enough water to pump out of the ground for this project, or etc. Okay, there's species that are very sensitive or threatened in the area. So that's what our advocacy program does. Go on in. Let me take these.
Well, they're taking the
Oh,
laptop.
take them? I'm just this.
Yes,
He
that's
doesn't even know what a laptop is.
We have a science team. Amy Soley is our head scientist, and the science team, they do a couple of really big things. One of them is we put citizen volunteers out into the watershed, and this is the watershed here. And what they do is they monitor the quality of the water, and they do that through chemical testing. There's a team called the CAT team, Chemical Action Team. There's a group called the BATS, which are Biological Action Team. They go out and look at macroinvertebrates. You guys know what macroinvertebrates are? Anybody ever go to a stream and like hang out, check it out? Anybody here? Okay. So macroinvertebrates are the little creatures that live in the stream. And the reason we are looking at those is because they all have different pollution sensitivity. And by looking at the community that's inhabiting the stream, we can determine the health of the stream. So we have volunteers collect data, which means they're collecting the insects. And then there's days they come in and we look at the stuff in microscopes. The other thing the science team is doing right now is we're working with a couple organizations and knocking out dams. Dams were once an important feature of our environment, and they, I guess there can be some value to them. There certainly can be, but there's also some costs to them. So we're very interested in opening up as much of the Millstone River as we can so that fish, a migratory fish known as the shad, can reestablish a home base in that river. So they'll breed in the river. They're sort of like the salmon of the East Coast. They don't really taste like them, unfortunately, but they run out of the ocean, up the river, breed, and then they return to the river. So one of the things that the team is doing right now is they're going to where one of the dams was broken out, and they're gathering data. What fish are here now? What macroinvertebrates? For the fish survey, they work with the state. They electroshock. Have you ever seen those? They'll go in with a probe in the water. You're wearing rubber, and then just enough of a shock that the fish, it disrupts their electrical system. Their swim bladder doesn't function anymore. They float. So it looks devastating, but it's not. It's traumatic maybe for the fish, but it doesn't kill them. Boom. Now here's the fish population. We can monitor who's there to see how removing the dam has affected the water quality. And education program. I had an education program. We service about 10,000 students a year through various programs. A lot of that is with little kids. Sort of three main facets. We work with schools, we work with the general public, and then we have a summer camp. With schools, most of that is younger students, and that's really just the mechanics of school. At the lower elementary grades, there's a broader curriculum. Everybody's on the same page. It's kind of easier to, shall we say, be part of a marketplace. Whereas on the high school level, not everybody's taking this class. Not everybody's taking APES. Not everybody's taking, I don't know what other science classes you have here, but everybody's sort of on a different kind of path, so it makes it a little harder for us to kind of join in on those forces. Watershed. Can anybody tell me what a watershed is? Yes, sir.
I'm gonna guess it's like a place where you store water,
Okay.
like for other purposes.
Okay. Anybody want to elaborate? Or okay, how about this one? I'll tell you, this watershed is 265 square miles. And it's named the Stony Brook Millstone Watershed.
Did you do your bias watching?
You're thinking of it. Yes?
Is it like in between the two lakes or something? Or not lakes, but like rivers and stuff?
Close. Oh, yeah.
We're located on a river.
Okay. So you guys are right there. So watershed. Did you want to make one stab at it?
I think it's like you use like a big area of land where there's water separates.
Okay, so you guys are all right about there, and it is rather once you get it in your brain, it's really easy to articulate. It's an area of land drained by a body of water and all of its tributaries. So rather than being between rivers, it's between some high land. Now this is New Jersey. This right here is called the Hoagland Mountains. Anybody been out west? Okay, so out west, things that are called mountains are bigger than anything we have in New Jersey. but it's all relative. So the Hoagland Mountains are about 500 feet tall, which means water hits them. It's a rock. It's diabase. The water doesn't really percolate down. It runs downhill. You're on this side of the ridge, you go into this watershed. This side of the ridge, you go into another watershed. This 265 square miles is drained by the Millstone River and all of its tributaries. We could be called the Millstone Watershed Association, except that the Stony Brook is a significant tributary. The Stony Brook meets Carnegie Lake right here, so it's a long tributary. Millstone River starts down here and then hits, Stony Brook comes in, and then they go up through Carnegie Lake and up to the Rare River. So some of our founders were actually along near the Stony Brook, hence it's kept in the name. So that's who we are. So, oh, yes, question.
So, do you just find watersheds in the mountain?
I'm sorry?
So, do you just find watersheds in
There are watersheds everywhere, and they come in different sizes. So if you were a watershed specialist, you would use different terms for different sizes of watersheds. Basins, sub-basins. Well, I just like to use the word watershed. And watershed comes in different scales. In my backyard, there's a stream, and the stream is the Beans Brook. The Beans Brook leads to the Millstone River. So I live on one small watershed, but we all live within multiple watersheds. I'm part of the Atlantic Ocean watershed, right? The water that everybody hears. The water that lands in your backyard is headed to the Atlantic Ocean. I'm guessing by definition, by where this school district is, no. So watersheds ignore political boundaries, right? Political boundaries are made up. Hey, let's put in this road. There's a road near me called Province Line Road. You're on one side, you're in Hopewell Township. You're on the other side, you're in Montgomery, I think. Yes, Montgomery, because here it is. So are we in Plainsboro or West Windsor? Plainsboro. Okay, so Plainsboro is entirely within this watershed, and you've got Cranberry Brook, Devil's Brook, which both lead to the Millstone River. So everybody here is part of this watershed. I guess if I went to the south, West Windsor Plainsboro High School South, some of the people who are going to that school, as you can see from West Windsor, some of it is outside the watershed. Okay, it doesn't change the way you function. But it changes, it just means the water in your community is going in a different direction. The whole idea behind this is that, if you wanted to protect water, in your community you could come up with rules and regulations, right? But water kind of ignores political boundaries. It goes across political boundaries. So we want to make a difference with the water in this area. Boom, we use a watershed as a functional unit. Okay, I don't want to, so that's who we are. Me, you guys are freshmen, sophomores? Freshmen. Okay, so one quick bit, sophomore, junior year, to start to rev up. What are you doing with your life? How the heck are you supposed to know that, right? So it wasn't too hard for me. I love nature. Being outside, I felt like part of that community of life, and it didn't occur to me that I could make a living doing that. So I went to school to get a science degree, and right away I met somebody who was a naturalist for an environmental center, and I knew right then exactly what I wanted to do. So the reason I share that is, there's a lot of pressure from parents and teachers, and what are you going to do the rest of your life? Search your heart. What turns you on? Imagine waking up every day and saying, "Ooh, I'm going to work today." I'd hate to wake up and go, "Oh, got to go to work today." And so I'm lucky. Not everybody gets to be part of that club. Some people, you got to make ends meet, and work is called work for a reason. But I do enjoy my work. I consider it mission work. I consider, I am here for one reason, and that is to speak for the environment. So, do I have any pictures of the current building? No, I don't. So we have a house that we utilize as an environmental center. It's got a couple of display rooms, and the display rooms have things like there's a matching board that has, there's some skulls up above, and you have to try to guess what the skulls are, and you can press buttons. There's a tree that was made out of plywood and painted, looks like a tree, and with little doors on it, so you can see who lives within the community of the tree, what types of organisms depend on a tree. There's living displays, so we have some native snakes and turtles you can come and meet. So our environmental center has been more sort of ecology-based exhibits for families and younger children. So the new building is going to be, we'll still retain some of that flavor, but the hopes are to make it much more sophisticated. The building itself is going to be sophisticated. We are aiming for LEED Platinum status. So what we're trying to do, and that's, I should know what that acronym stands for. Leadership. I don't know what that acronym stands for.
Can you guys look it up? LEED.
LEED. Leadership. Environment. We've got to be all capital.
Leadership in energy and environmental design.
Excellent. Who did that?
Bennett.
Magic quiz. All right. Yes.
Bonus for the computers.
So there's different stats. There's platinum, gold, silver. I don't know if it goes below that. But the idea is we get points for being earth-friendly, doing the right thing. Doing the right thing is not always the cheap thing. But so first points, we have an old building. We're using it as an environmental center. We're keeping it. We're going to almost triple the size of it. Anybody else in this situation, have you seen this before? If you go down to the Jersey Shore, you go year after year, it's like, man, those houses are bigger. What happened? Boom, they knocked the house down, right? Start over. No, we're keeping that building there. We just started construction after 18 months of waiting for permits. Not a fun thing. They're knocking out sheetrock and dropping the ceiling and tearing stuff down. And they filled 2 giant dumpsters. They told me that 95% of what goes in the dumpster gets recycled in some way. Now that's not that's not every construction job, but that's how we've hired. And the one guy said, actually you can get a film, and I hope we do, of the path of this stuff. It goes to some center, gets sorted, and then they said, and this is not really 5%, they said at the end the guy would be by the dumpster with a couple of big buckets with the stuff they couldn't reuse or recycle. So that's kind of a crazy thought. So keep that building. We're looking at energy systems, we're looking at water systems, wastewater systems, all kinds of things are going to influence how this works. And schools, I find schools are probably the biggest practitioners that I've run into of this new technology. Bathrooms are a little funny. Men's room is the men's room. You guys have waterless stuff in the men's room? No, not here yet. Do you have solar here?
We do have a couple panels.
Solar. So schools are getting grants and doing some innovative things. So that's really good. So we're starting to do that. This really, I'm not going to use this because that's not going to help us, but Bill, I'll use this. You know what a ranch house is? Single level house, okay? Current environmental center is a ranch house. This is what's happening to it. And maybe just throw this up here real quick. So out of we're almost tripling the size of it. Here is the existing building. Starts right here and goes up, and there's one room here that's getting knocked out. And then this is all being added. And we're going to have display space in here, display space here, classrooms, a couple offices, storage, a lab, so students will be able to, school groups will be able to use the lab to do water studies and other things. We're going to have down here, we don't have a fancy name for it, a GIS lab. Are you familiar with GIS technology? It's a mapping system. You guys, GPS, you ever use GPS? Automobiles? I'm going to a restaurant, right? You guys are freshmen, but maybe mom or dad use. So GIS is just geographical information system. It's a map that you can take layers of data in and out of it. Hey, I want to see the roads. I don't want to see the roads. I want to see the streams. I want to see shopping opportunities, whatever. Forest types. So that'll be a station there that we'll be able to use with groups. This is what the building will look like. When we schemed up what this building would look like, the staff, who I've been working for this organization 29 years. That's just the way it is. Again, I said my work is mission related. That's a long time. I don't know if your folks have had the same job that long. There are times I think that's too long. I want to reinvent myself. But the staff is dedicated to what we do. We work full time, but we all work more than full time. So we huddled. What do we want in an environmental center? So we kicked around, brainstormed. Here's what we need to do to keep up to date. And part of that was getting in touch with other environmental centers, getting in touch with other people who do what we do across the country. We came up with a big list, started to scheme up a project. The project came up to be about $12.5 million. It's a lot of money. And there are experts who know how much money that you could raise in a community. Don't ask me how that works. But it probably has to do with just demographics, who lives there, who works there, how much money they make, etc. It was deemed that we could raise between $5 and $7 million. So we had to scale the project down. So some of the things got kind of whittled away. But in the end, we've raised $7.5 million from people like you. Well, probably not teenagers, but maybe some of your folks, maybe without you even knowing it, some of your folks even donated to this. So literally just saying, hey, here's a project, here's our vision, can you help us out? So that's a lot of money that people have said, I like what you guys are trying to do, we're writing a check. So that's kind of fun. So here's an overview of some of what we're trying to do. And I wanted to spend some time on this because part of the problem that you're trying to solve, if I've got this right, is that we have inhabited a certain approach to teaching about the environment. This is all new stuff, and I'm not going to have a first grader come in and necessarily talk to them about how this stuff works. Maybe we can communicate that on that level, but I want to know how you guys think this can be digested, how this can be incorporated into teaching about systems. Systems, okay. So, systems. So, right, what is this? All right, flush the toilet. Right? You're at home, You flush the toilet, don't think about what's in there. Where does it go? Anybody tell me where your water goes in your house? So you have, someone said septic. Do you have a septic? You know, so you have a, right in your, so does everybody, who has a septic? Anybody know if you have a septic? So just less than half of you. So septic says, I grew up with a septic system. You flush the toilet and it went sort of right over there. Hey, that's where I play football, and that's where it is. And if it's a working system, it's not a big deal. Things have really changed. When I grew up, one part of the neighborhood, you didn't play in their yards as a kid because it was always muddy. I'm not kidding. It was always muddy. And, okay, some of you are making faces, so you know. So that's pretty creepy, right? Now, what happens is a lot of times when someone sells their house and they've got an old septic system, what happens?
They dig it out.
What was that?
They dig it out and get rid of it.
They dig it out and you put in a new system and you get this thing called a mound, right? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Maybe some of you guys have the mound. So it's not the best way to get rid of water. I would say one of the good things about the septic system is it sort of keeps the water cycle home. Meaning, if I use water here, you know, if we go back to primitive days and we're living in the woods and we're using water, drinking water, I'm returning that water, you know, right there to that local environment. All right, you know what that, okay. Meaning, it's percolating back into the soil eventually. All right. A sewer system, which some of us live on, when I flush my toilet, it goes down a pipe. I don't even know particularly how that pipe gets there, but I know precisely where it goes. It goes to a little sewage treatment plant on the Beedensbrook. So now the water that I use in my house, instead of percolating into the soil and feeding the aquifer, underground water that we need to use. So instead of feeding the aquifer, when we use a sewer system, boom, there it goes, and it goes into a local waterway. Not the end of the world, but it's kind of, we've rewired the water cycle. All right, so that's kind of an interesting thought. Also, there's an issue of water quality. Everybody says sewage treatment plant, ew. Well, yeah, it's ew. But if it's functional, it does a very important, vital job. It sort of uses nature systems, speeds it up so that our waste gets processed and the hazardous things are removed. We are going to build our own system right on site, and it's going to be a wastewater wetland, meaning you're going to flush the toilets in our place. You're going to, if you have a water fountain we're drinking, it goes off across the, you know, in a pipe, hits a couple of settling tanks a little bit, so we're cheating a little bit, almost like a septic tank, so there's something that we can pump out later, but then goes into a wetland. All right, now the wetland will actually be fenced off. You can't go and play in the wetland. It's almost like those houses when I was a kid, except what the wetland's going to do is it's going to be engineered to treat that water to the point that when it percolates out of the wetland, not that we're going to do this, you could literally drink it. Okay? So the idea is it will actually be treating the water better than a sewage system would be. Now, that's what's really held us up. Because you're saying, I'm in charge of nature, I'm in charge of these systems, I'm going to build this. So that in the permitting process, that's what's really made people nervous. The state has been nervous, a little reticent to embrace this, but they have. And it's been done in other places. So that's how wastewater is being handled. We're a watershed association, so there's other water issues. Stormwater. I don't know if I have any good pictures of... So stormwater. Stormwater normally hits... here's, I said all that about the wastewater. Here's... So wastewater, boom, goes into a tank, sludge falls out. Have you ever learned about sewage or... No, so you probably don't want to learn it now. But eventually ends up in a wetland. Okay? And when I say engineered, we have to choose the plants very carefully. A lot of math involved. Okay? Wetland is full of plants that like wet soils. Right? If we don't calculate how many people are using the facilities, whether it be drinking water, sinks, toilets, we may find our wetland dying. So there's been a lot of calculation involved to make sure that this gets designed properly so that the wetland can sustain itself and serve the purpose that we want it to serve. So this is wastewater. There's also a stormwater issue. Anytime you pave or build, water that would normally hit the ground and